All right, we are live. All right, so thanks so much for joining. It means a lot to have you all live on the call. And if you're watching the recording, thanks for taking the time to watch this. So we are going to talk about chewing and tasting, mindful eating. And before we kind of jumped on this call, we were just discussing how we really do believe that this topic is so critical when it comes to any health habit change. The more that we can bring awareness to why we're doing what we're doing, or while we're in the moment of eating, really it can be just such an empowering catalyst for change. And I was actually just sharing a client story that I have a client who we got her meditating, I think it's like 5 to 10 minutes a day, something real, doable. We all have 5 to 10 minutes a day. And her meditation practice has dramatically impacted her eating habits. Really, we ended up stopping working together early because she met her goals, and it was totally because of starting a mindfulness practice, a daily meditation. It's absolutely life-changing. I'm a total yoga addict, and anybody who really knows me knows that. So I'm drinking the Kool-Aid hard. But saying that your yoga doesn't necessarily have to be on the mat, it could be something else. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just knowing that this, for a lot of people, can be the cornerstone for all these other good behavior patterns that we're trying to get into. I mean, once we become mindful of where we're at and what our body really wants, then it becomes so much easier to simply choose a healthier choice or choose what actually nourishes your body. It's when we kind of get out of presence that we get into trouble. And so that's why we felt like this is such an important topic, is because it really can be that linchpin where all of a sudden all these other goals that we've had for a long time can just fall into place because we are present to our body and present to this moment, and therefore we can respond accordingly. And so all of a sudden, these things that have felt so challenging, it's like, oh, it's actually no big deal. I can finish working with my coach, early because I'm just now living this, and this is just where I'm at, without it being something we have to constantly maintain.
Totally. All right, let's dive on in. So again, if you have any questions or if you're just joining us, post them up in the chat and we will have a live Q&A at the end. So I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to share 3 tips. We're each going to share 3 tips in regards to how and why to eat mindful. Hopefully we will convince you of why to eat mindful. So my name is Sarah Klein. We both live in Durango, Colorado, which if you are calling from outside of the US, it is in the southwest corner of Colorado. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach and avid yogini, and kind of my personal belief, personal and professional belief system is that health is much more than what we're eating. It's a balanced recipe between the way that we're moving our body. Are we enjoying our exercise? The type of food that we're eating. Are we eating the right food for us? Not necessarily the latest fad diet or what works for our best friend. How are we talking to ourselves? Our mindfulness and meditation and or stress management tools and practices, and a feeling of purpose, so meaningful work. So I think it's a balanced recipe of all of those things. And then how I apply that in my practice is through the 3 pillars, or I have it as 5 pillars right here, but 3 pillars to health, I believe, are clean eating, mindfulness, and movement. And then I'm constantly, why do we do what we do when we know what we know? And I'm a strong believer that it's support and accountability that really make the changes happen. So we're getting really clear on what kind of accountability we need as an individual and then seeking that. All right, so knowledge is power for us to show up and really make good decisions to treat our bodies well. So we're going to just very, very briefly touch into the nervous system, because I think that when we have a big picture of how this really amazing system works in our body, we can start to use it to our advantage. So to keep things really easy, we are going to call it the red zone and the green zone. The red zone is your sympathetic nervous system. It's your fight and flight. So it's that feeling that you have if you are getting cut off in traffic, chased by a dog, or your boss just called you to drop a big deadline on you. Your green zone is your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, keyword here, digest state. So it's that beautiful feeling that you have after a yoga class or on a long walk with a good friend. It's when you feel nice and chill. Um, so when we are in our green zone, our body can start to work on its wellness systems. So things like it can bring energy and blood to the immune system, to the digestive tract, to reproductive health, to cell reproduction, all of those quote unquote wellness systems, which are critical for vitality. We don't want the body focusing on when we're being chased by the rabid dog, right? So it's a highly, highly intelligent system. It says, all right, we're safe, we're cool, we're good. Let's go and work on all these wellness systems. And then when you're getting cut off by traffic or whatever it might be, all cylinders fire when you're in the red zone so that you can really respond to the threat or the perceived threat. Now, where this starts to get tricky is in our modern day world. And if this were a live lecture, or go post it up in the chat, what are your top 3 stressors? I have a feeling probably nobody is going to say the tribe taking over from next door or the lion coming to chase me. They usually are things like finances, work, family stuff, relationship stuff. So all the way that our body is set up from an evolutionary standpoint to respond to stress is very different it has to react differently to our modern day stresses. So I use this example because I'm sure all of us can relate on some level to it. You wake up late, you hit the snooze button way too many times, you fly out of bed, you get whatever you have to get ready for the day, you run out the door, and you eat like a granola bar on the way to your office. Then you show up to work and there's a load of paperwork that you have to get through. Plus you get bombarded by emails all day. So you skip your lunch break or you eat in front of the computer. And really the day just doesn't slow down until you hit the bed. And when we are in that state, we do not turn off our nervous system. And so unless we're consciously turning off our nervous system and bringing awareness to what red or green zone we're in, then our body is constantly in that fight or flight state, and it really starts to mess with those wellness systems. It starts to mess with digestion, absorption of nutrients, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of the tip 1 is the idea is that you are not only what you eat, but how you eat. So when we are eating in a state of fight or flight, digestion decreases. So the blood moves away from the digestive tract, and therefore we don't absorb our nutrients as well. So eat all the kale salad in the world, but eat it in a 9 out of 10 stress state, and you're really going to pass most of those good nutrients by you and not absorb them as well. So what do we do? Well, one is we want to get really clear on checking in with our nervous system a couple times a day. We live in the world of multitasking. So we need to put the ball in our court and really become empowered at figuring out how to check in multiple times throughout the day. So understanding where your on-off switch is, and this, you might be a veteran to this, or this might be brand new information, but if you are low belly breathing, if your low belly is doing the breathing, you cannot be in the red zone. You're absolutely in the green zone. It's not like you're kind of in one or the other. It's all or nothing. If you are chest breathing, you are in the red zone. So I'll have clients set an alarm a couple times throughout the day. Put your hands on your low belly, start to low belly breathe. The more that you consistently do that, the more you're training your subconscious to switch into that state. And then that kind of comes into, finding a practice that you really enjoy, whether that's, downloading an app like Calm or Headspace and starting a meditation practice, or is it starting a yoga class or making sure you go on your walk with your friend a couple times a week. So the more that you spend in that green zone, the more that, you can naturally come back to that green zone when needed. So let it become a habit that before you eat, you stop, drop, and belly breathe so that you make sure that you slow your nervous system down. You fire or power down that nervous system so that you can digest your food better. And so that's like a little science behind it. But I mean, just ask yourself, how do you eat when you are stressed? What kind of cravings do you have? We're going to talk about that in a second. What kind of decisions do you make? You know, if you're in a really stressed out state and you go to the fridge, are you going to make a good decision? I'm not going to. I'll tell you that much.
It feels good at the
Yeah.
time.
All right. So tip number 2 would be stress less, breathe more for weight loss and for happiness. So cortisol is one of your stress hormones, and that's the one that is responsible when the stress response is on for a longer period of time. So some really interesting research shows that when cortisol is running through your bloodstream, you increase your appetite, so you want more food, and you crave foods that are high in fat and high in sugar. And on some level, we all know this, right? The cake tastes way better when we're stressed. Yeah. So you're really swimming upstream when you are trying to work on maybe a weight loss program or some kind of health habit change, and you're not addressing the stress in your life, but you're addressing, you know, changing your diet and getting more exercise. I have people come into my office all the time. They're quote unquote eating everything right and they're moving the way that they should, but they're not meeting their goals. And it's because of the stress. So it's really a swimming upstream when we don't look at that stress. So cortisol in the bloodstream decreases satisfaction around food. And when that satisfaction is decreased, we're going to eat more because we're going to continuously try to, fill that craving with food when really our body is craving some chilling out time. So when we sleep, I believe the statistic is 6 hours or less, cortisol increases in the bloodstream. And so therefore, lack of sleep will dramatically impact our food cravings as well. And high levels of stress, consistent high levels of stress, teach our body to hold onto the fat cells. And this is, if you think of it from an evolutionary standpoint, when famine used to be a big form of stress on the body. So in the case of famine, why would the body burn fat? It actually wants to hold fat, increase cravings, and decrease the metabolism. And so there's some really interesting science backing this of why diets don't work is because we are going against the way our body has been set up for survival, right? So we really need to manage that stress in order to kind of meet those bigger health goals. So what to do, meditation, exercise, and having a strong social support all positively impact the cortisol in our bloodstream. And there's tons and tons of science behind that. So pick your poison. Pick what works for you. I use my husband as an example. Like, I'm a huge avid yogi. He's not, but he's a big runner. And when he comes back from his long runs, he is on that yoga buzz that I'm on when I get off of my yoga mat. So it doesn't have to be yoga. It doesn't have to be sitting and meditating, but it's what works for you and really getting clear on like what brings you to that nice green zone. All right, so the next tip is get clear on what you are really hungry for. And this is actually later in the presentation, we're going to kind of go quickly through how to eat mindful. And I think that starting the habit of asking, what do I really need here when you have a craving can be a huge mind shift for success. So, I use this example, whether it really resonates with me, probably because I'm in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. But most commonly, our first connection to food is breastfeeding. And there is so much love and comfort and support that is going into that first connection with food. So food is more than just fuel. If we could break it down to fuel, that would be awesome. And I would be out of a job. So when we have a food craving, often it can mean something bigger than that. Congratulations. Thanks, Lizzie. If I stood up, you would see. So starting the habit of asking, okay, what am I really hungry for? And I'll use myself as an example. If I've been working straight until 3 p.m. and I haven't left my office and I haven't gotten away from the computer, I will absolutely have a sugar craving. Do I need sugar? No, I need to step away from the computer. I need to get outside. I need to maybe do some yoga. I need to breathe. I need a little break. So getting in the habit of asking what you're really hungry for. And then a little kind of science behind that, which shows the deep connection between food and mood. 90% of our body's serotonin, and serotonin is our happy hormone, is made in our digestive tract. So our digestive tract and our mental states are so connected. And beneficial bacteria that are found in the gut, there's one specific strand that has been found that increases gamma, which is a receptor in the brain, which helps us to decrease anxiety and feel happier. So there are some really strong connections to the health of our gut and the health of our mood. And also serotonin is key for the digestive muscles to start to contract. So if our serotonin is off, whether that's because we're feeding our gut bacteria the wrong foods for us, we actually won't digest our food in the same way. And it can lead, in extreme cases, it can lead to diarrhea or constipation, depending on how it is expressed to you. So kind of what to do with that information is to eat for mental health and to get really clear on, the connection between food and mood. Because if we're feeding ourselves crap, we're going to feel like crap, and then we're going to crave more crap. So, in a nutshell, to not beat around the bush. And here, I'll use myself as an example. When I get off track, like I'm on vacation or something, and there's a little more drinking, a little more sugar, a little more refined carbohydrates going on, I can feel my mood start to shift, and it starts to go down. And then I come back, and what I'll do is I'll load up on fermented food. So I'll eat a ton of sauerkraut, kombucha, kimchi, whatever I can get my hands on, create more balance in the gut. And then all of a sudden my mood starts to lift. And when my mood starts to lift, then I want the good, healthy foods. So basically what the point I'm trying to make is that it is all so connected. And when we start to step back and say, hey, what do I really need here? Then we can start to really show up and feed ourselves and be the detectives to know what foods feed both our body as well as our minds. And that is mindful eating, right? Being really aware and empowered by connecting food and mood. Right.
So my name is Nicola St. Mary. I'm a naturopathic doctor here in Durango. I have Pura Vida Healthcare is my practice. So I've been doing this for a really long time. And one thing that I've noticed is that there's really not a one size fits all solution, and that we need to start wherever we're at, and whatever feels easy is whatever's going to be most successful. So a lot of times I think when we get on a wellness track, we think that we need to go for like the hardest, biggest, furthest away goal, and then we get really defeated, and then we throw the whole wellness plan out the window because we failed yet again. And so it's really about meeting people wherever you're at. I've definitely had some people where we're talking about ketchup is not a vegetable. So that's not actually, so I'm meeting somebody like, okay, so if ketchup was not a vegetable, where else can we get vegetables? And as opposed to other people who are having a highly refined diet and they really want to just do some more advanced stuff. So I think that, understanding where we're starting and being really realistic and setting the bar really low so that we can like easily hop over the bar and have that success. And then we raise the bar a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. And that's really the way to vitality, because not only are we finding success, but we're finding some ease in there as well. And then we're really motivated because it actually isn't that hard. So looking for creative solutions to find out where is that sweet spot. in your life, in your patterns, in your system, where we can introduce these new concepts and they're really received by your whole system. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. So I want to bring this to your awareness, and I'm sure you all know this, but I think once we name it, it actually takes on a different, it just has a different level of meaning. So really, our digestive tract is one tube, and it starts at the mouth and it ends in the anus. And so there's just one long continuous tube. And so whatever is happening in one part of our gut is going to be significantly impacting the rest of our gut system. And so I think a lot of us don't think about, say, allergies or hay fever, that sort of stuff, as having anything to do with the gut. But really, that mouth, the sinuses, those are the beginning and the opening of your digestive tract. And so we have to really look at this as one complete system. The other thing to realize is that our digestive process, we think, starts kind of in our stomach with the hydrochloric acid, but it actually starts in our mouth. So when we salivate, when we smell food cooking, or we think about food, or we see food in front of us and we get a little extra saliva, even right now I'm talking about it, I notice that just kicked in for me a little bit. In that saliva is an enzyme called amylase, and amylase helps us to break down carbohydrates. When we swallow that amylase as part of our saliva, that kicks in the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And then that moves on down the tube and kicks in the liver and gallbladder to start secreting bile that helps us to digest fats. And then on and on and on down the entire digestive tract it goes. The other thing that we have to remember, so when we are grabbing and going, when we're not aware of what we're eating, or we're just grabbing a bar and we're eating it while we're driving or emailing or whatever is more important than receiving our food, we don't start that domino. So it's like we're taking in food, but we're not waking up the digestive tract and to let it know, hey, food's coming, get your workers in order. We got to start processing and digesting this food. And so what do we do about that? It's really about connecting in with the food. Now, the most ideal is to be involved with the preparation and cooking of your food, and at every meal. So for myself, I'm pretty good about that at breakfast and dinner. Most of my lunches, I have usually been involved in preparing them, but I haven't in the moment. And so I'm, heating up some leftovers, or, enjoying some foods from home, but I'm taking them out of the fridge, or something that's quick. And so in order for me to connect with my food, it helps me to really just take a moment and tell myself I'm eating now, and really avoid distracted eating. We'll talk a little bit more about that. If you're in a restaurant, take a few moments to, even if you're at like a taco bar, look at all the ingredients that are in there. Take a few deep breaths and smell the aromas that are going on, because that's going to wake up your digestive tract. I don't know about you guys, but it's not uncommon for me to go into Zia or somewhere and see people on their phone or texting while they're waiting in line, right? So we're not paying attention to the fact that we're actually having to prep the body to eat. One thing that I love that Cheryl McGordy actually shared with me when she was doing her Ayurvedic training is this idea of taking 3 breaths while looking at your food before you start consuming it. Because again, that's getting into what Sarah was just talking about, which is moving us usually from the red zone, unfortunately, into that green zone by connecting with the breath and moving us into that parasympathetic or relaxed state. And then, but it's also, we're looking at the food, we're taking a moment to realize, wow, that looks really good, that looks really appetizing. The other thing that taking a pause before eating helps us do is, am I hungry? Am I hungry for this? Or is it, or do I want something better? Or do I want something different? Or is this not going to be what I'm wanting right now? Or am I really excited to eat this and really, again, receive that nourishment? Because eating is much more about just the physiology of nutrition. It's also about how do we nourish ourselves and what are we taking into our system, and not just our physiological system, but our energetic and our emotional system as well. Okay, so here's the idea, going back to this, if you remember the tube, that when one comes in, one should be going out. That is physiological normal. And it makes sense, right? If it's all one long tube, if new stuff is coming down this side, then old stuff should be moving out the other way. And so there's something called peristalsis that's kind of how we move food and then stool through the digestion. It's kind of this like smooshing or motion that happens, and that gets again woken up when we are aware that food is coming. So when we are quickly grabbing and going, we're not necessarily aware that food is coming, and so we're not waking up that muscle response to kind of help old food get out of the system. Having a bowel movement is really the body's way of taking out the trash. And so when we don't take out the trash in our kitchens, it gets a little old, it gets a little stinky. The food that we had last night, now it's getting a little rancid, and so we can smell it again. So it's re-entering our environment. The same thing is happening when we're not moving our bowels regularly, is that trash is kind of sitting in the colon, and that gives the body a chance to actually start reabsorbing some of the waste products that we worked so hard to get rid of. So it's really, really important that we're moving our bowels at least daily. I definitely have people that are like, yeah, I'm not constipated. I go for sure every other day or that sort of stuff. And it's like, we really need to be taking out the trash at a minimum once a day, ideally 2 to 3 times a day, and having a nice, fluffy, complete stool. As a naturopathic doctor, I'm really comfortable talking about poop. This is happening. This is just what's going on. So that's good. So, how do we make this happen? I have a lot of people that are like, I've never pooped every single day. And so it's like, okay, let's start by chewing our food thoroughly. This is something that continues to be a challenge for me when I'm not mindful. I don't chew my food completely. I swallow bigger pieces because I'm trying to hurry and get done with it. I had dinner with a friend a long time ago, and she was cutting her food into these teeny tiny little pieces. And I'm like, this is going to take us forever to get through dinner. But we had nowhere to be. We were having dinner together, 2 girlfriends, chit-chatting. There was no rush. I don't know where that pressure came from. But it was really fascinating to just kind of these mindful habits that we can get into of even just cutting the food in chunks that are a little bit smaller, or receiving smaller bites, and then really making sure that we're chewing our food. Sometimes I'll even notice it's like hard for me to swallow my bite of food because I've not chewed it enough. And that's something that's going to make a huge, huge difference. Again, not only is there the awareness in your digestive system that stuff is coming, but the more you chew, the more saliva you're producing, the more enzymes you're mixing with that food, and you're starting that digestive process actually in your mouth. Another thing that I see, I would say 50% of the folks that I see for constipation, I ask them to start drinking 2 big pint glasses of water upon waking. So one at the bedside table before your feet even hit the carpet, and then the second one when you're brewing tea or brewing coffee or whatever you do in the morning, have another one. And what that does is it hydrates that last part of the colon. So again, if we're talking about this lovely tube here, it's a slip and slide. And the more wet it is, the more lubricated that tube is, and the easier things will have to be moving along. If you can imagine sending your kiddo down a dry slip and slide, it's not a pretty scene. Yeah, it's not good. And they're not going to have the easy ride that you might hope for them. The same thing is happening in our digestive tract, where we really need to lubricate that with plenty of water, and oftentimes some good fats in the diet as well. But it's kind of an aside. And a lot of times people start they'll start their day just with coffee, and that's a diuretic. So that's going to be a little bit dehydrating. So there's this idea of taking in plenty of hydration first thing in the morning, and then all you have to do is maintain, rather than waking up, not having any water, having some coffee or caffeinated tea, and then you're playing catch up for the rest of the day. And then always a little bit of just gentle exercise, just taking a little walk, getting up and stretching, something like that can really help enhance the digestion, not just going back into work or stressors, or just plopping and sitting and contracting our diaphragm and our bellies kind of on a soft couch watching TV. Doesn't have to be a big, huge anything, 5-minute walk out the driveway and back, and you're good to go. And then the last tip is trusting your inner wisdom. And so again, Sarah touched on this too, but when we slow down, we tend to simply choose healthier foods. We tend to choose foods that are more nourishing and more satisfying to our whole person, rather than just that impulse. We also tend to make better life choices when we're slowing down. So this is a big one. It's not just about food, but I think we're used to moving so quickly in this world and we think about food as like a means to an end. Like, I'm hungry, I need my hunger to go away, so I'm going to eat whatever's quick, easy, convenient. And so we're really moving away from that wisdom of the body saying, I really love some greens. Or, you know what, I don't want toast with my eggs. I love my eggs over spinach, or maybe I could do some sweet potatoes, or maybe I actually don't want eggs. I want a piece of turkey for breakfast, even though that's not traditional breakfast food. I love, love, love soup for breakfast. It's one of my favorite things. And people always are like, that's so weird. And I'm like, I don't know, is it? It's warm, it stokes my digestive fire. It's usually pretty easy to digest. There's usually a lot of nutrition, and it's easy for my body to assimilate. Soup is also something I can't generally eat very quickly, which for me, with a 7-year-old, getting out the door in the morning is really important. It's important for me to create space for me to receive my food in a healthy way. And then, like Sarah touched on before, if we're not connected into our person, if we're not slowing down, our health will be limited. I was interviewed a while ago by the paper talking about anti-inflammatory foods. And so we had been talking for about 45 minutes, and she's like, okay, hands down, number one anti-inflammatory food, go. And I said, stress management.
Awesome.
Yeah, because the truth of it is, when we are stressed and we have higher cortisol has two main jobs in the body. One is to regulate stress, and one is to mitigate or reduce inflammation. So, but evolutionarily, we're always going to favor that stress response, because it doesn't really matter if we've got an inflamed knee if we just get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. So we are going to simply have more inflammation in the body because of that physiological cortisol not being available, because it's managing the stress. And so there's less of the building blocks, or less of the raw material available to reduce and maintain a healthy balance with inflammation. So it doesn't really matter what you're eating. If you can't slow down and connect in with your person, like Sarah said, you can eat all the kale salads in the world, but you're not going to receive that nutrition in the same way. So what do? Making sure that you're paying attention whenever you're eating, and listen to your body's cues. A lot of times I'll give myself a portion, but if I'm not paying attention, I will eat that whole portion regardless of whether or not I got full 5 minutes earlier. I'll just keep on cruising through because I'm not paying attention. I'm also going to likely eat more when I'm not paying attention, because I'm not actually present to the fact that I'm eating and receiving this food. I'm missing the sensual experience. Food is something that we see, hear when we crunch it and eat it, that we taste, that we smell. It's real, and that we touch sometimes too. So eating can be one of the most sensual things that we do every single day, and we kind of blow past that opportunity. When you have a craving, a cue that's been helpful for me, like, oh, I want some chocolate. Then I'll ask myself, is that true? No, like Sarah said, no, what I want to do is move my body, or what I want to do is go pee. I'm sitting at my computer for 4 hours, So really finding out, like, is that true? Is that really what I want right now? And sometimes when I ask myself, is that true? Do I really want chocolate? The answer is a resounding yes. And then I go for it. But I'm really connected in, and I'm much less likely to beat myself up or have any guilt or shame around the fact that I chose chocolate, because I'm feeling really in line with that choice, rather than kind of away from my body, and then I chose it, and then I get to beat myself up because it really wasn't what I wanted in the first place. And then cutting back on distracted eating. Distracted eating is eating at the counter, eating and emailing, eating and driving, eating and, figuring out your financial situation, whatever it is. Yeah, it's terrible. It's like talking about red zone. But really, this is one of the biggest things that I see with folks, is that there's almost no meals that are actually spent just in the act of eating, especially when we're eating by ourselves. We're online, we're flipping through our phone, we're on Facebook, we're checking CNN, whatever, but we're not present to the fact that we're eating. We're also going to tend to eat a lot slower and be a lot more satiated if we're present to that experience.
Awesome. So we wanted to kind of just put together how to, and we've pretty much covered all of these, but just so you have them, whether you can hear us, we'll talk through them, or you can see them. The first one would be, what am I really hungry for? Or is this true? Kind of really getting clear. Turning off distractions. Absolutely. I love how you just touched on that. And, you know, the signal between your belly and your head is slower. And if you're eating fast and distracted, you could easily eat half a plate more than you needed. We all know that, right? On some plane. The 3 to 5 low belly breaths to turn off the nervous system. You were just talking about the 5 senses, using all 5 senses during your experience and really letting it be a meditation. Like, can you bring your yoga practice or your meditation to the table? Chew and taste, chew, and chew some more. Yeah, you'll be present if you're really chewing up your food. And then, you know, this is a good trick. I bet at least some of you have heard of this before, is to put the fork down between meals or between bites. Yeah. You're going to put it down between meals.
I'm ready for the next one.
That's kind of how I feel lately. But yeah, breathe, then bite. And whether that's putting the fork down and taking a full breath. I have a friend who I went and had dinner at her family's house, and everybody takes 3 deep breaths before. It's kind of it's like their prayer. I really liked that. That was kind of cool. And practicing gratitude, when we really connect with our food and understand the great journey that the food has taken to get to our plate, we're not going to overeat or abuse the food, and we're going to pick healthier foods. So taking a moment and being grateful from everybody, the person who planted the seed, the earth for letting that seed develop and grow, and the person who watered the seed, picked it, drove it to wherever you lived, put it on the shelf, who paid for the food. You know, it goes on and on. Like, there's so many steps that our food takes to get to us and to nourish our body. And when we are in a state of gratitude, we are absolutely in the green zone. We're absolutely in the green zone, right? If you're feeling grateful. So that is a good way to kind of like slow down and check in and chill out before eating. All right. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So yeah, if you enjoyed what you heard here, we'd love to stay connected with you. And so we each have online ways of connecting. So I'm at Facebook at Dr. Nicola. We also do a monthly newsletter. There's not a ton of stuff that comes out from our office, so usually once or twice a month you'll get something. And I do offer 15-minute free consults if you're interested in learning a little bit more about naturopathic medicine or how this might be a good fit for you. I'm happy to chat with you and talk about that.
Awesome. So we have our 30-day clean living challenge, which kicks off Monday, May 1st. And it's a really fun program. We do talk a lot about mindfulness and how to implement that into your eating habits as well as into your life. It's along the 3 pillars to health. It's clean eating, movement, and mindfulness. And it's a 4-week program. And week 1, we focus on really a detox of the body. We do an elimination protocol so people can get very clear on what foods feed them best. Week 2, we focus on how to create balance around what you've learned. So we really get down and dirty on clean eating. Week 3 is all about mindfulness. And week 4 is all about movement, but saying that it is a challenge-based program. So the challenge is to eat 90% clean, meditate for 5 minutes a day, and get at least 30 minutes of movement a day. It's a really fun and supportive program. It's all online. And I always, after these webinars, like to give some kind of gift and thank you for taking the time. First of all, thank you for joining us and taking the time to hear what we have to say, but also for, really caring about yourself. This is so cheesy, but I really am a believer that each person who shows up and cares for themselves is therefore a better person. And, we can kind of change the world that way. Because when we're caring for ourselves, we are much nicer. And when we're more aware too. So your gift, which is a 24-hour fast action bonus. The program, the 30-day challenge, is usually $97, but you can get it for $67 if you sign up within 24 hours. And I just posted up the link in the chat, and I'm also going to email you guys that link so that you'll have it. So if you're listening to the recording, you still got that 24 hours, just use the link and you can join in. There's a meal plan a week that you can 100% follow, or you don't have to, so you get bombarded with really tasty, I think very tasty meal plans. And then if you would like some more tailored support, I also work one-on-one with people, and I do book free nutrition consultations, so 30 minutes. So if you want, you can follow up with me and we can either talk on the phone or in person or on a Zoom call. Lots of ways. Yeah, so I think that's all we've got, right? So yeah, so stay connected, and thanks so much for joining us. Why don't we actually just give you guys a couple minutes, and if you have any questions, I'm gonna unmute y'all, and you can either post the question up in the chat or just speak, and we should be able to hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
I had a question under the tip 5 on the 2 glasses first thing in the morning. I've heard multiple times from different sources, and haven't seen any proven, I guess, studies or any research done on it. But drinking like lemon infused in the morning, warm versus cold, or adding ginger. I know that that's digestive support. I just wanted your opinion on it, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think warm water with lemon would be, I would say, would be like the pinnacle of ideal. And certainly if, ginger or cayenne, or, you want to add in some other herbs, that's great. But what lemon does is it definitely wakes up the liver and gallbladder a little bit more, and it's also alkalinizing. And so it helps our body move out of that more acidic state. The reason I just talk about 2 plain glasses of water is kind of I'd rather that you get some water in your system than
Right.
I can't warm up. I don't like to drink tap water, so I've got to boil water, but then it gets too hot and I've got to wait for it to cool, and and by then I'm hungry and I want my coffee, so
Right.
So yeah, I would definitely say, for me, the glass of water I have on my bed is just room temperature water, because I put it there the night before. And then the first glass of water I tend to have upstairs in my kitchen is a glass of usually either room temperature or warmer water with lemon, and that's my ideal. But I do move in and out of that. There's moments where I'm just really glad I got the 2 glasses of water in. But I feel so much different in my system if for some reason I've had to skip that. Or if I wake up in the morning and I really need to pee and I'm like, oh, I'll get back to my water, and I skip it. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference in my day. So I guess I would take the principle of it and then apply it in a way that feels really supportive. The last thing you want to end on with a mindful eating course is that now you have all these stressors that feel really unattainable or like they're going to take up all this room in your world. Like, it's supposed to feel slow. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think all of this information is really great, and I think that it needs to be discussed a lot more because we get too busy and we don't think about it. So thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Of course.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you all have an awesome rest of your day, and stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was really good.
Great.
Good to see you, Holly.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.